Hello, friends. I'm DJ Lance Rock, and I have to say, Rock and Roll Grad School is awesome!
This is Rock and Roll Grad School with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling, Yankee Hotel Podcast.
Hello, kitties. We are going to have a real good time together because today is, it's like a 2 for Wednesday, sort of.
Indeed.
We have our friend Chan from Blues Traveler with their new record.
Mhm.
That is a lot of fun.
We say that about a lot of things.
I know, but their last record was the blues cover album. That makes sense with the name.
Of course.
This one, it's all R&B, and maybe it's just that is much more in my groove. But they've got some great songs on there, and on the track list, and you were not there, unfortunately, so you missed out. But I asked Chan,
I was there the first time.
Yes. The fact that I looked at the track list of the record and it said Groove is in the Heart. And I was like, is it that Groove is in the Heart? And you know what? It is that Groove is in the Heart.
Of course it is. There is no other groove in the heart.
And they pull it off. They have somebody else do the Q-tip rap, which is, I think, great for everybody.
Probably, yeah. It's a good thing.
It's a fun little record. And we talk a little bit about when they're going to be getting back together and doing a full-on Blues Traveler record of original material. So there's that. Is lovely. And I would recommend it to you, but I don't believe you can access Netflix outside of the country.
Yes, I can.
Oh, you can. Don't tell me how. Is it some weird?
Do it. I've been accessing it the whole time.
Okay.
But there's only certain things that you can't. Like they just switch it up.
But there is brand new on Netflix, the Anton Corbijn documentary on Hypnosis, the graphic design company.
Mm-hmm.
All the stories I've heard before, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Who doesn't want to hear about the pig floating away for the cover of Animals, how they came up with the Dark Side of the Moon and Houses of the Holy, and it's a fun little documentary.
All right.
A lot lighter than you would think a film directed by Anton Corbijn would be.
Oh, that's that. Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
But the topic's kind of lighter, right?
It is. And the thing we've been texting about that we need to get to the bottom of is Now and Then.
Indeed.
So we have not spoken since the single came out and the video has come out.
Not. Correct.
What do you make of it?
I love the single. I think it's
thank you for sharing.
Very sweet. I'm talking. I think it's very sweet. I think it's very apropos. I think they did a nice job with it. I like it. I like the single. I think it works. I don't like the video.
The video is awful.
I can't stand the video. And I am, as earlier discussed, I am a big Get Back fan. I mean, I love that documentary, but I can't stand the video.
There's something incredibly, I think it's because it's so obviously a pastiche of Images to have Ringo and Paul in present day.
It's just weird.
And then George and his
But I've seen things like that done before, and I can't give a good example of what it is. I've seen it where it kind of works. Like it's not revolutionary, but I've seen it places where that sort of works, sort of the ghostly figure joining you sort of thing. But in this, it just doesn't work. Because I think they also aren't consistently in the same era. I think that's part of it.
Yeah. And somebody else pointed out that the footage of Paul from current day is shot in like 4K and Ringo's is not. And so it's like
Right.
somebody got
That
the short
feels
end of that
weird.
stick.
Yes. And then the other thing that was confusing to my mom was there is some of the footage from the 90s. If
Mhm.
it moves so fast, you think that it might be present day, and then you see George, got a bit confused.
Yeah,
Because Ringo's looks haven't changed that dramatically since then.
true. Yeah.
Now something I do love
Hmm.
is watching Prince William give Ringo his knighthood. Have you seen this?
I have not. I will have to look this up.
I don't know exactly when it was. I just know it was 21 years. It's not that long ago. It was 20
Hmm.
years after Paul, but wasn't that long ago. Prince William, I've never seen Prince William look so joyful.
That's
It's really
nice.
cute. Yes, really,
I will
really
have
cute.
to. I'll have to look that up.
I'll
Yeah,
send it to you.
I feel like I needed to just listen to their song a couple more times after watching the video to kind of cleanse my palate.
I did that too. I went back and just listened to it because I never didn't like the artwork for the single.
Oh, I disagree with that.
You do like it?
I do
I
because
don't like it.
so the one image in the video that I liked is it's a shot of George in 64, 65 when they came to the US for the first time. And I think it's from them at the Empire State Building. And it's him just very
Okay.
casually hanging back, leaning up
Yes.
against the side. And somebody wrote like, oh, it's this great image because like it's basically a moment's respite, and he at that moment has no idea how this is going to change, and that the sort of Beatlemania
Yeah.
is never going to go away.
Right.
And like this 21, 22-year-old just like being like, oh, all right, we're away from the screaming kids for a minute, and then not
Mhm.
knowing that's just forevermore, that's what you're going to get.
Right.
So what I like about the single, and it took me a little bit to get used to it because Free as a Bird I liked, Real Love I really liked.
Agreed.
I think what the issue was, and it took me a while to figure out, is that both of those songs are very Jeff Lynne soundy because he
Of
produced them.
course, because he's yeah.
And the new record, I think maybe Paul and Ringo got a producer credit, but I know Giles
They did.
Martin did it.
Yes.
And
Or Shield.
I think he's far more respectful of the music.
I agree.
And I think it sounds much more like what they would have done, possibly.
Yes, I agree.
I don't know if you watched the little video, the documentary before.
I did.
I love the idea that they got an entire orchestra who had no idea they were playing on a Beatles record.
I know. That's my favorite. I think that's fantastic. That I love. I love that.
But I love the art.
You do like the artwork?
I think it evokes that era that they're trying to ape. I mean, the fact that the B side or double A side is a new remix of Saw Her Standing There. So like they're trying to bring you back to early Beatlemania, early 60s, and that's like a very 50s holdover kind of graphic. It makes me think of,
I guess.
like, I can't even think of the book cover it looks like, but it has sort of like a Penguin Random House cover
It does
to it.
that. Okay, that's fair. I do, and
And
maybe I'll like it more now that the song is here. I just didn't like it when it first came out, and maybe I haven't spent enough time with it since. 'Cause I've been
but
more
it is
focused
also
on those.
completely incongruous to other Beatles artwork.
That's what I don't like about it is, but
Which,
all of in fairness, like their artwork for their albums change exponentially with each. It's not one consistent.
mhm,
A Boston album, is a Boston album.
right.
The Beatles'
Yes.
various stages obviously varied, but it just feels so not dull. I don't know, and not
I
even
see what you're
simplistic. Because what's more simplistic than the White Album? But
right.
I don't know. It just doesn't. But I see what you're saying too. Look at us. I see what you're saying, and I will take it
Wow.
into consideration.
And I think, well, because by the time they broke up, I mean, even before then, they never had to put their name on the cover.
Right.
And so does it even say the Beatles? Or does it just say Now and Then? I think it just says Now and Then.
It says now and then.
And so it's sort of like what would the graphic design like direction be? You have the name of the song, and you don't need to put the band's name on it. Go.
Right.
And the singles, which I have somewhere, of Free as a Bird and Real Love, because they have a cut down version of The Christmas Time Is Here Again as a B-side, which I needed for the Christmas mixes.
Of course.
Both of them are just kind of the same gray that they use for the anthology artwork, the same font for Beatles and the title,
Right.
and then just one of John's pencil sketches of like Free as a Bird is a guy with a tree growing out of his head and birds in the various branches. I mean, very like, oh, of course.
Of course.
I don't know. I think it works, but maybe over time I'll just grow tired of it, and that doesn't have enough.
Well, and vice versa. I might like it better. I don't know.
Yes.
I have to see. But I do really like the song. It's very sweet. And it is fun. They did this whole like the Beatles and the BBC special that was really kind of fun. It was because it was all this footage of their various performances over the time. And then when the Beatles or when the BBC wouldn't play them anymore. And I mean, it's just interesting. But there's a lot of like Top of the Pops stuff and footage that was only salvaged by someone who like filmed it from their TV screen, you know, stuff like that. So it was cool. And it was like a pop-up video. It was like an hour special, and then they just did like little pop-up messages.
And you
so
you watched
fun.
that in the UK?
I watched it in Hampshire.
Okay. I wonder if it's available here. That
Probably.
was my question. I'll have to look for that.
Oh, sookie now. Hey there, sugar dumpling. Let me tell you something, girl.
Was this album something you guys thought of as a kind of a follow-up to the last album, the blues record?
It really was. That record, we had for a long time, because the name of the band is Blues Traveler.
Right, yeah.
Had always, and we did start out as a blues band. The original name of the band was Blues Band. So we'd always been like, we should do a blues album, because obviously our music is definitely blues based way underneath it all. I mean, we were kind of Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and then all the old blues guys was kind of what we were all into when we started out. And during the pandemic, fates conspired. We had the time, so we ended up going in. We were going to do a couple tracks, and then it turned into this great album. We had so much fun doing it, and it was well received. John actually is really more of like a soul singer. His voice, and it's just kind of where we came up. And the great thing is those songs are just so the arrangements, the melodies are just so delicious and fun that it seemed like just another fun project to do. We had just done a originals record right before the pandemic, Hurry Up and Hang Around. So, it takes certain it takes a certain things to come together to get the motivation to do a new original record. So we weren't prepared for that, but we had so much fun doing this blues one. And the way we kind of looked at it, and you can see it in the packaging, it's like back in the 50s and 60s, all these artists would do like their version of the standards. Frank Sinatra or whatever would do all these standards. And we kind of thought, at this point in popular contemporary music, those are the new standards. So we kind of looked at it like we were Frank Sinatra doing a standards record.
And it's interesting you said that, like, John's voice is so well suited for this type of music. When I put the album on, it just sort of sounded like a Blues Traveler.
Well, we have our I guess our saving grace, or we can't sound like anyone else. And if it's very important if we're going to kind of interpret these, that it sounds like Blues Traveler. Even with all the guests and all the rest of it, that kind of comes through. And that's been a cool thing about the band. We've tried, we can't sound like anyone else, so we gave up trying a long time ago. I mean, even when we were kids in high school, we try to cover things and it would just turn into our like weird take on things. And then, you know, we were always just doing originals, really. So, you know, with these songs, the arrangements and they're hit songs. They're all hits. So we could just, we didn't have to tinker too much with the actual song form or any of that. We could kind of just take it wholeheartedly into our kind of world. So I'm glad you say that, because, you know, that's the idea, to kind of synthesize the two.
Was it hard for you? Because I first listened to the record, I was like, okay, where's Chan in the mix here? Like, what's he doing? And it sounds so much like a Blues Traveler record. Like I said, did you have to kind of modify your playing that much on this record and these songs?
Well, sure. I mean, you know, a lot of it was, I actually was just so gassed to kind of, I mean, for us, doing the blues record and doing this record were really a great learning experience for us to kind of deconstruct these things and see what these craftsmen, you know, especially a lot of the kind of R&B stuff, they just knocked out hit after hit after hit. And they would just, you know, in the studio that day, come up with these cool parts. And, you know, and a lot of those guitar parts are really sparse, you know, that's what's cool about it. You know, I think we're constantly as a band trying to play less. So this is a really good lesson for us to do that. But so for me, it was just great to kind of reinterpret the way I played guitar. And honestly, it's improved my guitar playing and improved my songwriting. So for us, it's almost like these are processes in like, you know, master's classes in music for us. So we learn a lot, which I think is gonna be cool when we go in to do our next, you know, originals record.
Yeah, it must give you a lot of, I mean, like you said, Percy Sledge, that kind of stuff, like Curtis Mayfield, you can take a hammer to those things and they're still gonna sound great.
So cool. Yeah, Curtis Mayfield's the bomb. Yeah, I mean, all those little parts. I mean, and I've written a bunch of songs since then that are definitely inspired by what, you know, I learned how to play, you know. And when you're so locked into like the Blues Traveler thing, you sometimes get in a rut. So I do think playing this blues one and this soul, R&B soul one, it's kind of helped us look at, you know, get outside the box a little bit. So, you know,
yeah,
as with most things Blues Traveler, we kind of just follow the muse, and for better or worse. But in these cases, the process has been so fun, and we loved it.
When you started putting together that list of soul songs, were you like, well, do we try this? Were there any where you were like, damn it, guys, we have to do this one?
It's such a massive, you know, group think to try and get these things. You know, it starts months ahead of time with everyone just throwing in their ideas. You know, it's probably like 8 people throwing in
right
5, 10, 20 songs. And so at a certain point you start, you know, other people's ideas kind of become your own, because you're like, oh, that's a great idea. So I've lost track. Someone was asking me the other day and I was like, I don't even remember which ones I threw in, because at a certain point, you know, we all kind of like latched onto this song that we really love. I do think Can't Stand the Rain was one that I loved, that I was really excited and helped push for, but, you know, it seemed like we all were kind of into that. And Just Kiss My Baby was such a cool kind of different, you know, added thing to the record. We wanted a little bit of variation. So those are 2 that I was very excited we're on. But I mean, they're all such great songs. They're all hits. So you know, there wasn't a song on there we were any of us was not excited about.
And there's a few curveballs on this one, the way I think there was on the blues record. You did Crazy by Gnarls Barkley. This one, I looked at the track listing. I didn't have any songwriting credits on it. So I see Waterfalls. I'm like, is that the one I think
it's an R&B song?
It is. And same thing with Groove Is in the Heart, where you're like,
yeah, there are R&B songs.
That ticks all those boxes.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's a funny thing with both of those artists because when we were coming up in New York City in like late 80s, 88, 89, down the Lower East Side, Delight was playing all these. I mean, we played everywhere, including like Limelight, Spodiotes, and all this.
Really?
The club kids thing was going on at the same time that we were starting in our little world. So we would see, the Delight, we'd see them around. So they were that was kind of our era in New York. So we always had an affinity to them. So when that came up, we're like, that's kind of, there's an attachment there. And the great thing is Waterfalls came out, was a hit that same summer that Runaround was a hit. So it'd be like back in the day, and the VH1 and MTV would just be rotating the same 10 videos, which we were surprisingly lucky enough to get in that heavy rotation. And so it'd be like them, and then us, and then like Seal, Kiss on a Rose on a Grave, and then but so as it turns out, we were playing all these big radio fests that summer. So we played the MTV Video Music Awards, and it was our trailer, and next to us a few times was TLC, and it's just so we kind of got to friendly with them because we're just like polar opposites on the same bill. So we had a connection to both of them, and they're just great songs. So once again, if it's just all hardcore like Motown, soul, R&B, I mean, I think we wanted to get the New Orleans vibe a little bit, and then something contemporary we could do. But that music kind of has such a reach. So we figured they're soul songs, and those were actually both John's ideas. So I got to give him credit because they came out really cool.
I could see Delight playing Wetlands. It's hard to picture Blues Traveler playing Limelight.
Yeah, well, they would do showcases all the time. Because they were just performance spaces, and they would throw different kinds of events. So those big party nights were more like Friday, Saturday, whatever. But they'd have to fill them with different things on Monday, Tuesday. The Mermaid Club, Spodiotes. There was some other ones. I mean, we were playing 7 nights a week in New York City back then, and people, there's off nights. People will throw anyone down there, including Blues Traveler.
Right. And I saw you guys are playing the Ryman on this tour.
Yes, sir.
You've played that room before. What's it like to stand on that stage, especially now doing these songs?
Yeah, I mean, the Ryman's there's so many great venues in the United States, and that's definitely one of the calling card venues, the Capitol Theater, the Beacon. And so, you just always get excited for those great old rooms. Those stages have had so many amazing artists over the last 50, 75 years, whatever it may be, that you definitely feel some of that history and vibe. So those are kind of shows of note. And I think this Ryman, I think we're going to live stream it, and we'll record it, and you never know. But yeah. We're incredibly excited. We were actually supposed to play it this spring, and John got COVID, so we had to push it to the fall. But it'll be a great way to wrap up our year's touring. I think that's the last show of the year.
Yeah, it's at least is on the website. Well, because I get, like you said, the Beacon and the Capitol. You're like, the Allmans have played here, Dylan's played here. The Ryman's another level of Hank Williams stood on this spot, and all of these.
Yeah, no, it is true because it does cross over genres.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, any old theater I go into, obviously those ones are very famous and of note, but I kind of have a reverence for any of these old theaters. We play all over the country. And you walk in and they've been around for some of them 100 years. And it's just so cool to, we're playing our little part in this kind of tapestry of great music. So I'm pretty reverent of all those spaces. They're all kind of hallowed ground to me.
Do you guys still like getting out there and jamming and playing, because it's been so long? And
I always say the more I do it, the more I like it. As I've got a little farther down the line, the fact that we've been able to stick around as long as we have, keep it going, stay curious and into the music is something I'm very, very grateful for. And I hope it never stops. It's a fun gig if I can get it.
Yeah. How often do you look back on the other guys in the band and just, because obviously you've grown as musicians in the past 30, 40 years, or at least
Yeah.
you would hope you would. How often are you able to kind of step outside and look back at the band as a group and be like, my God, like, what have we put together here? The thing
Yeah,
we've been able to accomplish.
I feel like that on a regular basis. You know, it when I do play around, I live in Los Angeles here. I have a local band I play with that's fantastic, and great musicians, and I sit in with people. But to have a band that the playing together so long, you have a connection and a language where it amplifies everything you do is like on a higher tier than when you're just throwing something together, which is obviously a lot of fun, but it's just so much more focused. And everyone in Blues Traveler is just a fantastic musician, and we have a personal bond, a lot of love for each other on most days, and it is a band after all.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Rock and roll. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not all unicorns and rainbows, but I am it's funny, like we'll pick out a cover or something, and we'll just start playing it, and like 1 or 2, 3 takes, and all of a sudden we're like, man, this is smoking. I mean, we can turn anything into like a really powerful thing pretty quickly, and that's something I try never to take for granted.
Yeah. On this tour, are you planning to do a lot of those songs on the record? Because obviously you have a few that you got to play if you want to get out of the venue alive.
Yeah, well, you got to play the hits. We don't want to be
Right.
the band that doesn't play their hits. I mean, that's in the wing.
You got to play your Margaritaville.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
No one wants to go to a Blues Traveler show and not hear Margaritaville.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
great. A new cover idea. Yes, we'll be playing some songs from that. We're not, it'll be one. We've got one that we've already planned on starting up with, and I'm sure we'll add 1 or 2 more. You can't go, we're not going to do more than a couple a show. It's just too much, people, and and all the deep cuts from all our old records, people look forward to hearing those. So we'll start adding them, and we'll probably, by the time we get to Ryman, we'll probably have a couple. But we're definitely going to play at least one every night, if not a couple.
Do you think you're going to switch it up on a nightly basis, or kind of have those 1 or 2 where you're like, we got this down cold and we can take it? One
thing we realized over the years, and for us anyway, other bands seem to be able to do it better than we do. If it takes a few live playings of a song for it to really start to groove and feel good, and you can just like let it all hang out. So if we're switching around too much, we never really find that pocket. So we usually just pick one to start, get good with that. Once we're like grooving with that, we'll add another. And you never quite know what's going to work live until you've done it a few times. So usually, we'll see which ones are working better, and then, we'll include that. So it's really kind of an organic as we go process. It sounds like you were asking if we have a plan, and the answer is no.
I guess that's the version of the set lists and all of that.
Yeah, we switch that around all the time. So it's always a work in progress.
So you guys are heading out, I think it's like in a month or so. Do you rehearse at all anymore? Or is it sort of one day?
Not particularly. I mean, if there's a specific thing we got to go over. But usually if we're going to add things, we'll just powwow before and have everyone's like boned up, and then we'll sound check it. Then we get together an hour before the show, most shows, and we have our instruments in the dressing room. We'll go through the song, and then we just, warts and all, play it one time live, see how it goes, can make adjustments. So, we get to the lovely fans that are nice enough to grace us with their presence, get to see the process in action. So, I mean, part of being an improvisational kind of jam band is it's fun to put stuff out there and just kind of and play it in front of people. It's never done until you play it in front of people.
Traveler Soul by Blues Traveler is available from Round Hill Records right now, wherever you get your music. For more information and for tour dates, check out the website bluestraveler.com.
Rock and Roll Grad School is produced by the Professional Production Company. Please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, because your impassioned review is just as honest as us standing backstage waiting to come back on for the encore. For more information, you can check out our website, rockandrollgradschool.com. And like everyone else, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Today's show was recorded and produced by Heidi Hagquist and myself from our world headquarters located on the second floor of the professional office building, centrally located downtown. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing executive producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This one's for Philippe. Thanks for joining us. Good night, drive safe, and may all your favorite bands stay together.